Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media, where today we are decoding Trump tweets of November 19th, 2018. But before we get started, Thomas has a few things he would like to say about fake news and fake justice.
They're fake.
It's all fake.
I love that a federal court, ruled that the president infringed upon the rights of Jim Acosta, the accoster. This is so absurd. It shows that the war that has been engaged is going to have battle after battle, and that it will simply demonstrate to us a parade of stupidity, a three-ring circus of Democrat insanity. Now remember, when you say mainstream media, you say Democrat Party. Those are the demon rats. They are, in fact, controlled by one monopolistic, basically racketeering organization. And they are all controlled by what comes across their prompter through one company. And that company is directly connected to Dianne Feinstein's husband, Richard Bloom, through Avid ISIS management. And then the 6 corporations that rule the mainstream media, well, they all work together in a monopoly to present to you what used to be the very thing that controlled the presidency. Literally, the press corps controlled the presidencies of the last 6 or 8 presidents.
No,
Why?
I'm going to disagree with you. I think it's all kabuki theater, because we know that the presidencies are controlled by these globalists. When you walk it right back, it's controlled by the Jesuits, and then the media is there just as a distraction. All these people do, they just get into a room, and they're like little dogs nipping at the heels of Sarah Sanders, That's what they are. They're a huge distraction. Then you listen to them. People out in the audience don't, because they're smarter than that. But people in general listen to them, and they become so confused, or they don't even know the truth. And I see this a lot, Thomas, when people email me. They're very upset because they seem to be so alone in a community full of zombies who are not awake at all as to what is happening. I mean, they could watch their neighborhood being leveled like they are in California and go, "Oh, that was a wildfire."
They'll turn on the TV and they'll believe the perception management that comes through a monopolistic racketeering organization that controls the perception management of the popularity of the president. That's my point. The press corps controls what used to control, and very well, the popularity of the president based upon the way they spoke to the president, the questions they asked the president, what they reported, whether what they reported was the good or the bad, whether they hid the bad, whether they brought out the good or bad of the Republicans or the opposition party. Remember, they can go both ways. These are anybody who's not a globalist. The globalists are the ones we're talking about. They control the Associated Press. They control Reuters Thompson, and basically that controls the news. And if you believe the news, then you're going to be controlled, and you're going to find that the presidency is nothing more than a Hollywood-produced Disney World production. But Trump has now turned it, because he's a master of the media, into a reality television show, including all Americans. And now we get to witness what a president goes through when they supposedly are given the office. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, there's 3 chambers to the government, the executive, the House, and the Senate. And she should know she just got elected. She didn't have to take a test to become a member of Congress. She doesn't even know that she doesn't even know where she's at, what she's doing.
It doesn't matter. They rig the elections. We have shown this conclusively, and the rigging goes on in the deepest part of cyberspace. It's not just what you see at the polling places of people multiple voting. There is deep corruption, and so we can expect to have more of these people, quote unquote, elected, because the globalists have got to get their people in place for the final takedown of America.
Oh, yeah. And her good little buddies, the ones who still don't even know what their job is or what they're supposed to be doing there. And they're actually in their celebration the night that one of them got elected, she was dancing around with a Pakistani flag.
Well, good luck, Nancy Pelosi. She's got to control all these young people. That's going to be a joke to see.
Well, Pelosi's, I guess, in a bit of a fight. We thought that the gavel would be handed over to her. Sad that the minority was handed over to Kevin McCarthy. That's really sad, instead of Jim Jordan. But what we're going to see here now is the fake news and the fake justice. So what happens? The fake news gets insulted. One of the most insulting people I have ever seen on television that was claimed to be a journalist, Jim Acosta, is harassing the president. He told everyone one question. Jim had to get 5-6 questions in, and the questions weren't questions, they were insults. When you ask somebody, are you still beating your wife? That is an insult because it actually accuses them of something. And that's what all those questions that day were. One of them, literally, one of the questioners basically said, since you are a white supremacist, I mean, the insults that were being thrown at him that day. And what did he do? He beat all of them down, stayed as long as anybody could possibly have stayed, and beat them all down. And when it goes to court, what did Obama used to do? Oh, he'd take it to another federal court and get that previous court ruling overruled. Well, Trump can do that, but a lot of times these things are going to have to go to the Supreme Court. And now, unfortunately, for the Democrats and for the globalists, it may not go the way that it used to. And the antitrust investigations through the FCC and otherwise, and other agencies looking at what we have been saying is a monopoly, which is a clear monopoly that breaks all broadcasting rules because what they're broadcasting they know to be false. And they work together in a group. So therefore it's a conspiracy. So that's RICO.
People are going to say the NDAA allows propaganda on Americans now.
No longer. Trump took it out of the NDAA.
That's why I want you to point that out. And the other thing is remember Trump had an executive order right before the elections, and he said there are going to be consequences for election meddling. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
I'm not. Okay. So Mitt Romney, are you still rigging elections? We're showing the president, we're showing the folks who care to look that the OpTech software is all wrapped up around Mitt Romney. And if we can't take that corrupt Bushite down because of his corruption and his involvement in election rigging, then are we going to be able to do anything about election rigging in this country?
Well, also with Hillary, her involvement with Intrust and her friend Jerry C. Jones and Richard C. Walker and all the different things that are involved in the manipulation of the digital man in the middle election corruption points at a number of these people that should be taken down. And yes, we'll see in a few weeks, even though I believe that he is, for sure, Kristen Nielsen is out because she didn't do a good job on the border. She didn't do a good job on the elections.
No, she did what the globalists wanted her to do, to make sure that the border stayed weak and that our elections were thoroughly rigged. And we gave her plenty of notice, too, in written form of all the rigging that's going on. But what did they do? They met our comrade Christopher Strunk with a Secret Service agent and told him to go his merry way. They're not interested in what citizens have to say.
Obviously, and I'm happy then that she's leaving.
But
and
Mike Pence, he was also given this. What is he doing? Now, when is this report due? Today is Tuesday. It's 14 days after the election. Is this when the cabinet was supposed to come with their recommendations or their summaries of what was going on with the elections?
Well, he said 2 weeks after the election. The election's still not over. They're still counting votes.
Oh, I see.
People's seats are still being decided as we speak, because of the election rigging, corruption, because the system is broken, and the same
broken?
states...
It's not just broken. It's outright theft.
Well, what I mean by broken is that they can't even get some of the machines together. They can't get some of their polling together. They can't get the rules together. They don't check people's IDs. They're in states...
All done on purpose because with this kind of chaos, they can put people in like they're young socialists.
Well, we know that from the investigation Michael Pence did, Vice President Pence, that just from the reporting of 17 states, there was 3.5 to 5 million illegal aliens who cast votes in the 2016 presidential election. So we know, and we have the proof. Now, that's the federal government can know that. Elections are in the hands of the state, and even then it's in the hands of we the people. We the people are the ones who are supposed to secure a voting system that's fair and free. And at this point, it isn't free. We actually pay for all that stuff, and we pay who? The rogue CIA started with good old Lord Malik Brown and Jimmy Carter down in Venezuela when they developed OpTech. And so we're still paying OpTech. So Jimmy Carter walking around is still getting his piece of the pie to every single election that is rigged in basically the globe, anywhere that the rogue CIA or our CIA or our forces can, and the United Nations forces can get in to meddle in elections, which is every election, by the way. The United Nations meddles in every election and oftentimes declares them illegal simply because of their exit polls. So what we're talking about here is you have federal appellate courts, federal courts that are making decisions that overrule the executive. Literally, the executive in the White House, trying to tell the White House what they can do. They don't have to have pressers. If you remember, they were so rude to him at the beginning, it was just horrible.
Listen, this is what I don't understand. There are 3 branches of government in this country, and the executive branch, President Trump, is equal to the other 2 branches. He doesn't need oversight in this way from lower courts of his executive actions.
Correct. If the Supreme Court wants to challenge him,
yes,
that's okay. If the Congress and the Senate, whatever, want to challenge him through the committees that they have,
he needs to run over these lower court judges like roadkill and move on.
I think there need to be rules from the Supreme Court basically making all the federal lower court rulings really non-existent.
I mean, you need to have those federal court judges take a basic civics course so that they understand the 3 branches of government. And while they're at it, how about letting all these Congress members do the same?
Well, you see, the federal court system is set up to do what? Protect the feds. So what are they protecting? The IRS claims, federal claims, but claims over the states, or claims that they believe when there's problems between a state that a federal court can solve. That's all a bunch of nonsense. The federal agencies need to be basically mostly closed down and or have their jurisdictions limited and work within the parameters of the state. So if you have the Environmental Protection Agency, it should not be above state regulations. It should work within the state to implant good things from the federal government and to provide funds that are stolen from us through taxes. But I say there should be no IRS, so therefore you can throw out all the IRS claims through a federal court. Well, I just wanted to say that his battle with the fake news is also a battle with the fake justice system, which is not a justice system. Those people sitting in those positions are given higher ranks than we as citizens. No, the Constitution provides that does not happen. That there are no titles, there are no positions, there are no anything that make you, in fact, like a monarch in a higher status. The first estate, the second estate, that we're in the third estate. Of course, as the fourth estate, we're reporting on this. And we're telling you that the first estate, that's the Catholic Church and other churches. If they're caught in pedophilia, take away that estate, take away those rights, take away their right to not pay taxes and to basically run independently of even governmental rules, even law enforcement. Get rid of it. Second estate, the monarchy. No, that's the court systems, and that's the British monarchy, that's the Privy Council. Get rid of all of that. There doesn't need to be that. There's no such thing as a station above being a citizen. You do not have rights above a citizen. Like a corporation should not have citizen rights, should not have rights of a person, let alone the new rights of TPP that make corporations higher than nation states. It's an astounding world we're in, but these things are simple to solve once you understand their genesis.
Okay, let's get going on the tweets. I'm going to read these 2 tweets together. They're related. Of course, we should have captured Osama Bin Laden long before we did. I pointed him out in my book just before the attack on the World Trade Center. President Clinton famously missed his shot. We paid Pakistan billions of dollars, and they never told us he was living there. Fools. We no longer pay Pakistan the billions because they would take our money and do nothing for us. Bin Laden being a prime example. Afghanistan being another. They were just one of many countries that take from the United States without giving anything in return. That's ending.
Oh my, we only needed this one tweet today because it's such an honor to decode these tweets because, when you have a direct connection to the White House instead of just an imaginary connection to the White House, it is so rich and thick. So let's just break this down. Osama bin Laden was, in fact, put in place, and there are pictures of Donald Rumsfeld with his arm around Osama bin Laden. He was our man in Afghanistan to stop the Russian pipeline coming through Afghanistan. Okay? This is about oil. Who was Donald Rumsfeld? He was an oil man. Condoleezza Rice, oil. Cheney, oil. They were all oil. So if you look in the old days, the way that it used to work, now it's in the digital realm, but the oil was controlling everything and they were killing people for the oil and all of that good stuff. So remember, when you say Osama bin Laden, you say Al-Qaeda, which means the base. And that was the base where the where the CIA, along with the rogue CIA mercenaries who used to be CIA and or other counterintelligence in America or the military, come to work as mercenaries. We've always supplied mercenaries to Osama bin Laden. Remember, who is Osama bin Laden's family? That would be King Saud of Saudi Arabia. And who were the Bush's best friends? King Saud. Where did Daddy Bush live after he was the president? In the palace of King Saud. So he knew and was hanging out with the relatives of Osama bin Laden, and the money going to him was coming from us. We supplied the money for Al-Qaeda to basically push back the Russians in Afghanistan. So when we say Osama bin Laden could have been caught, let's remember that we are the ones who provided the lookalikes. The CIA provided the 5 or 6 different Osama bin Laden lookalikes, and those filmings through Al Jazeera, where they were broadcast, were actually done in Pakistan. As a matter of fact, everybody should know this. I thought everybody did know this. Osama bin Laden was in a hospital down the street from where they shot one of his lookalikes in the end, and that's what Trump is talking about here, shooting Osama bin Laden. He's also pointing out that the man who says he shot him is a fake. Now, that's what you don't understand, and I'm not going to go into great detail in that. But let's just say that the SEAL team that supposedly shot Osama bin Laden in Pakistan and then brought his body back to a ship and dumped him in the ocean, which is against all Muslim rules of burial. Insane.
And why are we allowing Sharia law now to overrule Congress? You know, it used to be, well, it's always been for all these years, that you couldn't wear headdress on top of your head. And now we have some congresswoman getting approval to wear her rag on her head. What's that about? Does that mean that people can go in and wear their MAGA red hats? Is this the encroachment of Sharia law into our law?
Oh, yes, it's happening everywhere that you get any Muslim community. That's their intent. Their intent is to overwhelm, to overpopulate, and then make sure to push their rules on yours, saying that it insults them. They're using their religious rights. Here's what you need to do. No more religious rights for anybody. No more. No more protections that give you the right to encroach upon U.S. constitutional laws. And if you do not come here to be an American, then do not come here. And it's as simple as that. Don't come here as a refugee in a caravan with your flag flying in front of you and saying you want to be American. Now let's go back to Osama bin Laden. Pakistan was always in direct league with Osama bin Laden. Remember, Pakistan is where Barry Soetoro, Barack Obama, where he became radicalized and got his training. It's where BCCI exists, which is the place that the rogue CIA at first used as one of their front banks, and that was the money behind Jimmy Carter. And also, remember, the BCCI money was behind OPTEC. It was behind the takeover of Venezuela. It was behind Lord Malik Brown in the manipulation of elections all over the world through these machines as well as the software that runs them. So when we're talking about Osama bin Laden, you're talking about the Bushes, Bush Sr. and Bush Jr.'s best friends. These are their best friends. These are the only people who got to fly out of America on a plane after 9/11 were the Osama bin Laden's relatives, who were here in America having a meeting with basically Bush, because remember that it was the Saud family, Osama bin Laden's relatives, who provided the money for the Bushes to do their oil failed drilling in, Texas, California, all over the Southwest. And so baby Bush got all of his money for his failed oil companies from Osama bin Laden's family. So we knew exactly where Osama bin Laden was at all times. He was a CIA agent. We trained him. The very books that they use were CIA manuals, and those are the ones that they claim are, those are the bomb-making books. And then they followed him to Somalia afterwards. And then they followed him when he went back to Pakistan. And he was in Pakistan because he had a kidney machine. There's one hospital down the street from where all the retired Pakistani generals all stay. And that is where the compound was that he was attacked. One of the most fortified places in the radical Islamic Muslim world is that compound. And right down the street from that compound is the hospital that we have always pointed out that Osama Bin Laden died in. Osama Bin Laden was on a kidney machine in the early days, even when you'd see the pictures of Donald Rumsfeld with his arm around him. Those pictures that we have of Osama Bin Laden's training camp, that what's called the base, Al-Qaeda, the base, the company, the platform, it actually is referred to as the list, or the list of those who were at that base that were being trained by the CIA. Who do you think filmed that? That was the CIA. All those films, those weren't made by Osama bin Laden. Those were made by us. And what's really funny is that the people that they try to accuse of 9/11, they demonstrate by showing those films and saying, oh, here are those people, 3 or 4 of them, with Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan as warfighters. Later, they gave them, through the palace of King Saud, through James Baker's expedited visa office that was put in the palace of King Saud, I think over a dozen of the 17 perpetrators, or however many you want to add to the group that they accuse of being the 9/11 perpetrators, the majority of them had come directly through there. And who was it that helped set that up? That would be John Brennan. So John Brennan was one. He actually signed off on, I believe, 12 of the people that they say were the radical Islamic fascists coming out of, Saudi Arabia and the palace of King Saud through John Brennan and through James Baker, which is directly through the Bush family. So when we're talking about Osama bin Laden, I get a little bit heated under the collar because we knew where he was all along. And if we would have simply said Pakistan is our enemy and BCCI should be closed, we would have never had Jimmy Carter setting up OPTEC. And the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence agency, that's who provided us with Imran Awan through a lottery, immigration draw, supposedly. And then the largest espionage, Pakistani espionage, shared, of course, with the Mossad and the Unit 8200 and Talpiad and the whole group, China and everybody else. But we had the Pakistanis right here in our own Congress, in Podesta's emails, in Hillary's emails, in Pelosi's DCCC, in the DC leaks, in Guccifer 2.0. That's all Imran Awan. That's all Pakistani. So, Mr. President, thank you for no longer giving them the money that Obama did to make sure that they would have plenty of money to continue these type of operations I'm describing.
Well, that's a very lovely explanation. And, here's the bottom line. Bin Laden was used as the boogeyman. And you've got Rumsfeld, Bush, Cheney, Mueller, Brennan, everyone you just named. They committed these atrocities against Americans on American soil. They planned and they implemented 9/11. Then they used the Bin Laden boogeyman to go out and have more of our men and women be killed on the Afghanistan field. It is directly responsible. It goes right back to Rumsfeld, Bush, Cheney, Mueller, and Brennan. The same thugs we see running interference for President Trump to make America great again. These are criminals, Thomas. These are criminals against Americans. They killed Americans. They were instrumental in more Americans being killed, and more than that, they killed our Constitution by rolling out their Patriot Act and their Homeland Security full with uniform and badges to make sure that free travel and speech and movement in the United States is forever curtailed. And you want to know who it is? Why haven't we arrested Donald Rumsfeld, George Bush, Dick Cheney, Bob Mueller, and John Brennan? These, Thomas, are the enemies of the United States, and they are the enemies of the world.
They are mass murderers.
Mass murderers. Stalin and Hitler and all these others we can buy. But we can't even look at the face of who claims to be American, who killed Americans here in our country. around the world and continues their killing today, even to the point where we see their pal Hillary has the keys to the internet, and their plan is to take us all down through this digital tyranny. And Americans, you better wake up. Now, people ask me all the time, Betsy, what do we do? What do we do? They're so organized and we're not. Well, we are organized if you look within yourself. Find the capacities and the skills and the talents, the time, the resources that you have, and make your voice heard. Go out into your circle of influence and do what you can to educate and enlighten others. People need to see that these are Americans committing treason against us.
On 9/11, when I could obviously see that it was a controlled demolition, and I said such to people, I was considered treasonous. They wanted to kill me. They wanted to kill me for the thought that there could be such a thing happening on American domestic land against Americans. Sorry, folks, it's been happening for a long, long time. These are murderous, murderous people. Obama killed 2 million people with bombs.
Don't forget Susan Rice. I mean, the women are just as much involved in this. Samantha Powers, Valerie Jarrett. It's all this nasty group of people that are trying to kill America, kill Americans. I mean, look what's going on in California. Don't tell me those are wildfires. That is an attack on America by these globalists.
Susan Rice, when she was in charge of all of Africa, which no one ever was, Obama put her in charge of all of Africa. I have attempted to figure out how many millions of people she was responsible for killing personally. At least 4.5 million people I can track. And she was 100% personally responsible for those troops being given, for the money, basically U.S. aid, fake money, to protect U.S. corporations, all oil corporations, or in Africa, other resources, natural resources. But basically, she was responsible for 4.5 million people being killed during the Obama administration. Hillary Clinton was part, of course, of the Arab Spring and part of all the bombing when she was there. So she was part of that. We have 58 million refugees, many of whom are dying or coming up missing in human trafficking. And so I can't give you the full numbers, but during the Obama administration, we are talking about the fact that history will look back on this time and say that Obama was right up there in the league with Stalin. Right up there. This was a pogrom. This was an attack without any congressional approval. 8 wars on 8 countries, nonstop bombing for 8 years, killing 2 million people minimum, 58 million people and refugees, which we all then, Americans, paid for out the teeth for those refugees through the United Nations and bringing them also into our country.
And because they own the media platform, regular Americans will not hear the truth. And when you have talking heads like Mike Wallace and even that pathetic little Jim Acosta, all they do is run distractions so that the people cannot hear what's going on. They are as much a part of this takedown of America as any of the people I just listed.
They may be worse. Was Goebbels, the minister of truth, the Nazis, the SS, who was worse? It was a small group of people who controlled even the entire military. And in America, that is called the Senior Executive Service. And they are military. They're the top dogs telling our military what to do, though they aren't even qualified to do so. They're just like the National Socialists. Now remember, what is Ocasio and all the others? Bernie?
I like that.
Ocasio. She is a what? She's a socialist. So national socialists, call it what you want. Populist socialists, call it liberal socialists. Socialism. Where does socialism lead? It leads to Franco in Spain. It leads to Benito Mussolini in Italy. It led to Hitler in Germany. It led to Xi right now in China. It led to Vladimir Putin, who's really kind of a despot. He's a kind of a gentle oligarchic despot, but still he's a despot. What does it lead to when you give such supreme power to people like the President of the United States, like the Bushes, like Clintons, like Obamas? It leads to them killing people, mass murderers who stand before you with the support of the press and tell you that what they did was good. Nothing was good about Iraq. Either one of those two wars, we did not declare war either time. No, the U.S. Congress did not declare war in Iraq.
Well, they've already stripped America of everything, including its ability to wage war or not.
And in the short run, people cannot see these things, just like they couldn't see Hitler was evil. They thought Hitler was a good Catholic. The Pope supported Adolf Hitler. The people of Germany supported Adolf. When the concentration camps' stench of burning flesh was coming into their neighborhood, they didn't ask any questions. And I'm afraid that America, a good half of America, is listening to the television, being subliminally controlled and other devices, and that they are so asleep that if they hear the things that we're saying, which are simple realities, and we're not even blowing it out of proportion, we're not getting into the specific details of the Brady Dunham stocks that were used to bring down Russia that was also part of 9/11. We're not getting into any of the many details. We're giving you a general overview that if you can't see that, you need to pinch yourself and wake up.
Well, luckily, it doesn't require everybody to be awake to win.
It's the force of consciousness that changes history. Listen, it comes down to one person. I never say listen, but I'm saying listen now. One person can change history, and that person may be listening to this broadcast, may not be anybody we know. And we see this happen all the time, that people contact Betsy and her team and say, oh, by the way, I did this magnificent thing. And they say, well, we didn't even know. And he says, yeah, I've been doing it for a long time. That happens all the time. One person can change history, and does. If you look back at history, it is not a bunch of dates. They are individual biographies where at one moment, someone's biography became so exceptional that history used them as a lever to change, as a turning point in history. And that's what we're suggesting is happening with Trump. It can happen with any listener that we're speaking to today.
But here's the thing. When you say that, then a person could sit back and be waiting for the Savior to come. And what I've always said, there is no plan. We individuals have to work their own plan. And you have to look at your circumstances and see what you can do, and not do it because of some heroism that you might imaginarily envision down the road. I know I butchered that sentence, but it's about what you do within your heart and your consciousness to make yourself a better human being, and then make those or provide an environment for those around you to have a better experience of being a human being. And that's where it begins.
That's right, Betsy. And as we've talked about so often, it's about reaching a critical amount of people so that there is critical mass. And that is consciousness. But it's also what you do. What you do is your consciousness. What you do is your religion. What you do is who you are and who you will become. And so whatever you're doing, do it with your whole heart, and do it like Donald Trump is doing it. You notice he's getting some gray hair, and now for the next 2 years he's going to be in a pitched battle. And if he cannot change the mainstream media, then no president from him on, and I think he'll have a second term, and he'll continue the battle, and his MAGA followers, which will be changed into probably its own political party, will in fact continue this battle. But we have to stop the globalists from dismembering America. We have been reporting to you through Betsy's genius of Circle Awareness Month, Crown Agents Awareness Month, SES Awareness Month. As we brought these things, those groups collapsed. They faltered. And in some cases, they're in court cases which they cannot get out of. Why? Because of critical mass of consciousness. And it wasn't necessarily because of us. It was because everyone at the same time, like with a good invention, it appears 3 or 4 places on the earth at one time, literally at the exact same moment. That's what's happening, folks. And you're part of that movement. So don't let the movement down. Do your part with your consciousness and with your actions.
The fake news is showing old footage of people climbing over our ocean area fence. This is what it really looks like. No climbers anymore under our administration. And what you can see is on the American side of the fence, there is this razor wire thing that is as tall as the fence.
In the old days, if you put up a picture without a caption and without a date, then you would get in huge trouble in broadcasting or in printing in newspapers. You'd have to print a retraction. Did we not all see the same fake pictures, even videos, that purported to be people climbing over the fence. And so Trump had to show the fake news once again. Here's what it looks like, folks. Nobody got over. That is a lie. So that's the kind of thing that we used to call yellow journalism. It's propaganda. It is a monopolistic, racketeering manipulation that causes national security issues, which of course go against all broadcasting morality, ethics, and therefore it is against the law what they did. And the wall, well, that's going to give the Democrats for the next 2 years, the spotlight is going to be on them. Are you going to get together in the House, Miss Pelosi, or whoever it is that hopefully someone whose teeth aren't falling out of their head and knows who the president actually is by name and by year, because she doesn't. But whoever it is that's leading the House, they're going to have a spotlight put on them about what they're going to do about this wall, the money for the wall, as well as they are basically supporting lawlessness if they do not build a wall. When caravans, literally 5 million people have now said that they're going to join caravans and come to America before the wall is built. 5 million people. That's all being supported by Russia and by China through Venezuela. And it is a movement.
Okay, and we had some tweets about the Christmas tree arriving, and there's some videos in there. If you go into the link that I leave always at the in the description box, you can go to a page where we have the tweets and some other items for you. And the final tweet for... Oh, you want to say something about the Christmas tree?
Of course I do.
Okay.
I want to point out that hardly anyone remembers what a Christmas tree is. And the fact that there is a Christmas tree, I just want to say, it is a Christian Christmas tree. That is not a Buddhist Christmas tree. It is not a Confucian Christmas tree. It's not a Taoist Christmas tree. It's not even a Muslim, a Buddhist Christmas tree. It is not a Jainist Christmas tree. It is a Christian Christmas tree. Lord God Almighty, we get to be Christian again. It says it on our money. It says it in our Constitution. God. It doesn't say Allah. It doesn't say Brahma. It doesn't say Muhammad. It doesn't say Confucius. It says God.
And it doesn't have Sharia law all in it.
That's exactly where I was going.
And I'm tired of this creeping of Sharia law. Folks, call it out. When you see it creeping up towards you in whatever way it is, call it out.
And soon, someone with a offense to their delicate religious sensitivities will say that they don't want that Christmas tree with lights on it because it creates, or anything that reminds them of anything religious, of course, anything religious like a manger or a cross or the Ten Commandments or anything. No. Can't have any of that. We can only have that one particular religion's choices. Now, I want to point out, what is the Christmas tree? When Adam and Eve when they were kicked out of Garden of Paradise, what happened? They left Eden and they went out to the east of Eden and they built a house. And they had a sprig. And that sprig was from a tree of the Garden of Eden. And they put it on top of the house. It was called a topping tree. And that tree grew. And it protected that house. And it was very important to them. And so today, you don't see this. You see it in Europe, that when you finish a house, you cut down an evergreen tree because it represents the tree of life, which is this sprig represents the tree of life, and you put it on top of your house as a Christian, also Hebrew, reference to the Garden of Eden. And so we have a Christian nation. Sorry, folks who don't understand that. And if you don't understand that God and Christianity, Christ, that means Jesus Christ. That means, oh, that's right. It's not a happy holiday. It's happy birthday, Jesus. Let's go back to that. Maybe you don't want to be in a Christian country. Maybe you want to be in a godless country, one that has nothing, one that is Buddhist, one that is whatever. Choose your country as you please, but please don't attack what you should have agreed to when you realized that you were a citizen of the United States of America and you woke up and realized that you were in a Christian country.
And the last tweet. I hope the discovery and eventual recovery of the Argentine submarine San Juan brings needed closure to the wonderful families of those brave missing sailors. I look forward to hearing more from my friend, President Mauricio Macri in Argentina later this month.
No president has ever been more sensitive to the military, even those who had been generals in military. Trump is so sensitive to those who put their life on the line. And I think that is one of the most noble things. I've not seen that in a president. Obama had absolute disdain for soldiers. He completely destroyed our entire military. He used it up. He got rid of more admirals and generals than anybody. He would set them up and fire them. He would create nonsense, say pornography was found on their computers and they'd be gone the next day. The military was under attack during the Obama time. Those 8 nations were under attack. All of our laws were under attack during Obama, and that has all completely been changed now. And so I just want to salute, as an ex-military person myself, our president and say thank you for the respect that you show to the military, because I'll tell you what, anybody who's ever been in the military, who's ever seen someone put their life on the line and lose it, died for their country, it gives you a completely different perspective. And Trump has that perspective without being a soldier, which is very, very extraordinary.
And these American soldiers, they did not go out to die for globalists.